All right, with Hashem's help, we will learn today Yevamos Daf Lamed Ches. Just as a word of introduction, that we have the great merit, a large group of our community, of the Chabad Sola community, to be in Yerushalayim Eir HaKodesh. And we are sitting today and learning in Shula's library in Yerushalayim. And it's a big privilege to be here, to be in this library, and it's a big privilege to be in Yerushalayim, and to, at the same time, traveling to continue our daily share. So we left off yesterday, Yevamos Daf Lamed Ches, 7 lines from the top. The fifth case, it begins in the beginning of a line, Safek v'Yavam. So based on the scenario that the Perek began with, that a person wrongfully did not wait the 3 months and either did Chalitza, that was the first case of the Mishnah, and the second case was that the person, the Yavam, did Yibum with the widow of his deceased brother. Let's give them names, the same names. Reuven married Rachel. Reuven passed away without children, or apparently without children. And the Chachamim told Shimon, the only brother in this case, wait 3 months to make sure that Rachel is not pregnant. And he didn't wait the 3 months. He only waited 2 months. And a month into his marriage, he notices that as we learned before, a month into his marriage, the Gemara explained before, Rachel was not yet apparently pregnant. So therefore there's no Roiv woman give birth after 9 months. Why don't we say Roiv? Because normally Roiv women start to show after 3 months. She did not show 1 month into the marriage. So that knocks off the other Roiv. So you're back with a doubt. And therefore the Mishnah said that the child is kosher. And we learned yesterday or 2 days ago, he can even be a Kohen Gadol, even though we don't know who the father is, but he's for sure not a mamzer. However, we don't know who the father is. So now the whole sugi here is dealing with this child's inheritance. And we are consistently calling the child a suffix, the one who is in doubt. So the suffix is he ben Reuven or is he ben Shimon? And in most of the cases, as we learned in the previous year, Shimon already has 2 children, who are Vadai, Shimon's children. If the suffix is also one of Shimon's children, then it will chap that Shimon has 3 children. So suffix v'Yavim. Now comes the 5th case. If you have the suffix and you have Shimon, Shabo lachlik b'nichsei saba, that they are now dividing the inheritance of Reuven and Shimon's father, we'll call him Yaakov. Now it's Yaakov passed away, and the din is that since he had the son Reuven, if the suffix would for sure be ben Reuven, and now the Zayde Yaakov passes away, the din is that the son stands in the place of his father. If that would have been the case, then the suffix would get half, b'makayim Reuven. We're not speaking about the laws of firstborn here, but if that would be relevant, then you would add that as well. But just to simplify things, for many reasons, the firstborn will not get, he's not a firstborn. Even though we're calling him Reuven, he has an older brother or an older sister. V'chuli. So Safek v'Yavim. Shabo lachlik b'nichsei sabo. Safek Amar, the one who's a Safek is saying, Hi Gavra, that person, meaning I, the same expression we had last time. Bar misnohu, I am the son of the one who passed away. I am the son of Reuven. And therefore, true, Shimon is a son, but so was my father. And if my father would have been alive, Reuven and Shimon would have divided Yaakov's property 50-50. Upalga didihu. So my father's half belongs to me. Yavam Amar the Yavin. Shimon says, no, at beroi didiat. You are my son. And therefore, since you are my son, who passed away? My father. My father only had, true, my father had Reuven as a son, but he passed away. Reuven had no children. And whenever the Yerusha doesn't go down, it goes back up. So who inherits him again? Yaakov. Yaakov passed away, it goes to Yaakov's children, now it's Shimon. So therefore Shimon gets everything. V'leis loch, v'loi midi, you have nothing. So what do we say over here? Says the Gemara, have a Yavam Vadai. The Yavam is coming with Tainas Vadai. The Safek is only coming with a Tainas Safek. Maybe. He doesn't say that he knows for sure he's Reuven's son. He's saying, I might be Reuven's son. And the rule is, like we learned in the last year, ve'ein safek moitzi midei vadai. Being that Shimon has a vadai. Even though Shimon's vadai is only in 50%. Shimon doesn't know that the suffix is for sure not Reuven's son. Nevertheless, in that which Shimon is claiming, he is claiming it as a son. And therefore, not only does he get the 50% that he's claiming, he gets all of it. Now this is the contrast, like all the Rishonim point out. The second case we learned that the Rav Mesharashia corrected the Chachamim, and he said that in the case where it was the Safek against the Bnei Yavam, and we paskened over there that no one was considered a Vadai, even though the Safek for sure gets a third. But the Rishonim explained that in the second case, the case of Rav Mesharashia, the Safek true gets a third because Mimanav Shech, he gets that third. If he's Ben Reuven, then he should really get half. And even if he's only Ben Shimon, then he's one of three, he should get a third. But he is not coming with a Tainas Vadai. The Safek is saying, I don't know, who am I? No matter which side he will be, he will get a third. But even when he gets the third, he's not called a muhzik on that. He's not getting it because he's a vadai. He's getting it because whichever suffix would be correct, he will get that third. Here, Shimon, here by Shimon, it's not all or nothing, but Shimon's 50%, Shimon is 50 or 100. And Shimon's 50 is vadai. And the 100 is also from vadai. In other words, the same reason why he's getting the 50 because he's a son is the same reason why he should get the other 50. He is for sure a son. If he would lose the other 50, that's not because he's not a son. That's because someone else is also a son. And since that's a suffix, here we say, Ein suffix moitzim edei vadai. Now, case number 6, suffix ubnei yavam. Here, it's not Shimon claiming against the suffix, but here it's the same thing. And it was Yaakov passed away. But who is fighting over his estate? Suffix, who might be the son of Reuven, and the children, Ubnei Yavam. Like we said, Shimon here had 2 children. Shabo lachlik benichsei Sabam. Obviously, Shimon had already passed away, so both Reuven died, and Shimon died, and then Yaakov dies. And like we mentioned before, that children go up to the place of their father. Being that Reuven and Shimon would have divided the estate of Yaakov, let's say if the suffix would have been for sure the son of Reuven, the division would have been that the suffix would have gotten 50%, and the other 2 sons, they would divide the other 50%. Suffix Amar, the suffix is saying, Kahu Gavra, that person, I, Bar Misnahu, I am the son of Reuven. I would like to get 50%. Upalga Didihu. Ubnei Yavam, and the children, the sons of Shimon, are telling the suffix that Achuna At, you are our brother, and true that you should get a portion. Umenasi Islach Bahadei. Yeah, you'll get a portion like we get a portion. You'll get a third. So they're claiming that you should only get a third. He is claiming that I should get a half. So the Gemara says like this: Palga the komaydiluhu. Let's go in reverse. The suffix is admitting what's the most he's claiming? Half, which means he's admitting that the Bnei Shimon for sure should get half. They want to get more than half. They want to get 2/3 together. But for sure, a half is theirs, so they take half. In reverse, Safik wants to get 50%. What are the children of the Yavam telling him? No, you are our brother. You should only get a third. So everyone is agreeing that he should get a third. And therefore, Tilsa the Kamei delay, the third that even the Bnei Shimon, the Bnei Yavam are admitting that he should get, is also shakal, he gets. So once you already gave 50%, and then the remaining third, how much is left? Pashlahu danka, only a 1/6 is left. Now in this 6, you really have a suffix. In the case we learned before, in the 5th case, since the Yavam is living, the Yavam is tining, I am the son, which he is. That's called a Vadai. Over here, even though the children of the Yavam are coming in the place of their father, but they are not saying that it's theirs. They are saying that they are coming because they have to already claim someone else's property. So they're no longer considered muhzakim. So since there's no muhzak, like we learned in the beginning of this whole sugya, even the chachamim who normally say hamoitzim chaveri olavaraya against sumchos, here they will say have a mamain hamutal besafik, and this final 1/6 should be divided half and half. Half and half means half of it goes to the suffix, and the other half is again divided into half and given to the sons of Shimon. Weiter, in this 7th case, what happens if you have, you have the grandfather,
because both of them are
equally not muhzik. Now, and therefore, whatever each side agrees that the other side should get, they get. And wherever they're having their fight, that you divide in half. Right. Seventh case, Sava v'Yavim. Sava v'Yavim that are fighting over Nichsei Safek. Look at this. The Safek dies now. Now, obviously, the father of the Safek, the maybe father of the Safek died. That's the whole case. So Reuven is not living. But the Safek was living. Now the Safek dies. Whenever a person does not have children or grandchildren, whenever there's no one in the line down to inherit, it goes up. If there's no one up, then it goes to the sides. So now let's think about this. The Safek passed away and he had an estate. So Shimon is claiming, right, the Yavam is claiming, I am his father. It should go to me. It's going up to me. The Zayda, Yaakov is claiming, no, that Reuven was his father. And if Reuven was his father, then it goes from the Safek to Reuven, who's not living. And yes, if Yaakov also would not have been living, then it would have gone to Shimon. But first it has to go up before it goes to the brothers. Because it really doesn't go to the sides. Yerusha goes down or up. It's just that if it goes up and no one is there, so that up's children go in his place. But it goes down or up. So Sava v'Yavim b'Nichsei Safek, or the final eighth case, where you have the grandfather and the Safek fighting over Nichsei Yavim. So here Shimon dies. If Shimon dies, we're speaking about a case where Shimon left no children. There's no two children, there's not even one child. There is a Safek child. So the Safek is claiming now the opposite. Now the Safek is saying, one second, I'm the son of the Yavim. I was born 7 months after my dad did Yibum with my mother. And the Yibum was kosher. And the Zayd is saying, no, you were the son of Reuven. Now that the Yavam died, the Yavam has no children. Who does it go to? It goes to me, the grandfather. So in both of those cases, Paskins the Gemara have a mamin hamutul b'safik. No one is the muhsik. So weiter, since there's no muhsik, everyone holds that whenever there's a doubt regarding who owns money, then cholkin, it is divided into half. Okay, let's go. Now, moving on to the next Mishnah. Next Mishnah, to understand the next Mishnah, we have to give a couple of words of introduction by reminding ourselves of dinim that we learned in Masechta, and we will learn, God willing, soon in Masechta Ksubas. What we learn in Masechta Ksubas, Daf Pei Amud Beis, the following. First of all, to review something that we mentioned not that long ago in Masechta Yevamos, that when a woman gets married, there are really, as we'll learn in this Mishnah, there are 3 names that one can give to the belongings, to the things that she brings into her marriage. Right? We'll begin by saying that if she owns property and she brings it into the marriage, that can be called Nichsei Tzoyin Barzel. That can be called ironclad property. Ironclad meaning that the Beis Din evaluates the value of that property when she gets married. Let's say they evaluated her property being worth $1 million. And ironclad, she will get $1 million if there's going to be a divorce or if he will pass away before she does. That's called Nichsei Tzoyin Barzel. That can also be called a nedunya, because really what happens there is that she's bringing this property to the husband. The property will really belong to him. He's responsible for its value when they got married, the value that it had during the time of their marriage. But the property itself will belong to the husband. Nichsei Melug, then the husband's benefit. Nichsei Melug, the word meluig or meloig means plucking. Plucking means fruit off a tree. Nichsei Meloig means that she's not bringing in these properties as a nedunya, as a dowry to her husband. It's really hers. Elamah, during the marriage, the husband has the right to use its fruit. The rentals, pashut if it's a field, to benefit, to sell its fruit. Aside of that, there's a third item in the ksuba, and that's called the ksuba itself. The ksuba means that the husband, when he marries a wife, undertakes to pay her a certain amount of money. Whether it is 2 mana, whether it is 1 mana, however it comes to that, we'll learn that in Masechtas Ksubas, there are two things going on together in the Ksuba, but we'll get to that at another time. And there, in Masechta Ksubas, the Mishnah deals with the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding a arusa who owns property. The example given is that while she was engaged, some relative of hers passed away. Let's say her father, and her father had no sons, so she inherits the belongings of her father. Now, she's not yet married, she is biblically engaged. She's an arusa, she got kedusha. Is she allowed to sell those properties? So Beis Shammai says the words that an arusa moicheres v'noisenes v'kayim. That an arusa can sell, she can deal with her belongings, and whatever she did is done. Beis Hillel says lachatchila she should not sell anything, even though she's not fully married to her husband yet. But being that she's already connected to him, that connection to her husband and his eventual either owning or having rights to her properties, since that connection already started, she should not sell. But if she sold it, if she gave it as a gift, then whatever she did, b'di'evet is good. So when it comes to a arusa, you have an argument. So now comes along our Mishnah, shemeres yavim shenaflu lo nechasim. What happens if you have a shemeres yavim? Let's go back. Reuven has a brother called Shimon, two brothers. Reuven married Rachel, and Reuven dies, and he has a widow. The widow is not pregnant. She's waiting. She's waiting for Shimon either to do the mitzvah of Yibum, or at least to do chalitza with her. Before Shimon did Yibum or Chalitza, she inherited property. So here says the Mishnah, Moidim Beis Shammai u'Beis Hillel. Merely here it's for example, or someone gave her a gift, or she found a mitzvah, how she got it. The word neifeles, the word neifeles means that she got something that she didn't own before. So now we'll clarify this in the Gemara soon. So Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both agree. It's going to chap that Beis Hillel is moide to Beis Shammai that Shamay Cheres v'Noisenes v'Kayim. No, it's by an arusa. Beis Hillel says lechatchila she should not sell it. Here Beis Hillel is moide, and Beis Shammai obviously holds the same, that she has the right to lechatchila sell it. Why would you think she would not have that right? Now, really, we learned the whole sugya of yesh zika or ein zika, and it's clear that these two sugyas don't exactly go parallel. Having said that, no, it's even the opinions that will hold that ein zika, nevertheless, when it comes to the connection or yesh zika, listen, everyone holds that there's a connection enough that she's not muteres l'shuk, she needs chalitza. So there is a connection. Now we're focusing on what effect will that connection have vis-a-vis her belongings. So even here, Beis Hillel holds it's hers, and therefore lechatchila she can sell it. Now, what happens if Mesa? What happens if she passed away? So ma yase biksubasam. What happens with her ksuba? The word ksuba here refers to the nichsei tzayin barzel, which goes into the dowry, which is part of the ksuba, and also what happens with her nechasim, hanechnasim, v'yotzim ima, what happens to the nichsim eloig, what happens to the belongings that really remain hers, but they go in and they go out with her, but during the marriage, the husband has the rights to use it. So again, there is a zika here, and because there is a zika, now that she died, so what will be the two sides? One side would be that being that there is a zika, then it belongs to Shimon. On the other hand, her family, the people that would inherit from her, if she's not married, so we'll call the family of her father, they claim, no, that since she had the right to sell it, even Beis Hillel is moide that lechatchila she can sell it, so if she dies it goes to us. So says the Mishnah, here you have a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Just to clarify things for later, that even though the Mishnah mentions both her ksuba, which is nechsei tzayin barzel, and nechasim hanechnasim v'yotzim nechsam eloig, the Gemara is going to clarify that the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is only regarding the nechsam eloig, and we'll see in Amud Beis why is it clear to everyone who the nechsei tzayin barzel should go to, and we'll see in the Gemara that here sometimes there is the muchzak, and ein vaday. Ein safik moitzim edei vaday, and the one who's the muchzik gets to keep it, and we'll see that soon. So Beis Shammai holds yachloik. who and who? Yorshei habal. We're saying the word Baal, but almost all of the Rishonim taich Baal means the Yavam. That it can mean the Yavam himself, or if later the Yavam died, his other children, together with Yorshei ha'av. Av it means her father. It means people that are connected halachically to her. Beis Hillel is going to mention all of the three types of ksuba money that she gets back. The first is called nechasim becheskasim. The nechasim, meaning the nichsei meloi. The nichsei tzayim barzel. Right? Nichsei tzayim barzel is something that belonged to who during the marriage with Reuven? It belonged to Reuven. She was only guaranteed the value, but the property belongs to Reuven. And therefore, since it's in the family of Reuven, not in hers family's chazaka, but in the Yevamos family's chazaka, he's considered a muhzik. Ksuba, the ksuba is referring, actually, let me clarify that, that in Mesechtas Baba Basra, there's a machlokes between Amoraim, who the cheskasan are. So Rabbi Yechanan says that, like I mentioned, that the chazaka means the husband's chazaka. Rabbi Lazar says that cheskasan ironically means the woman's chazaka. And you have a Rish Lakish that says you divide it. So we'll leave what the word becheskasan means from Mesechtas Baba Basra. Ksuba, the ksuba here is referring to the 200 zuz, becheskas yorshei habal, because the ksuba money is money that the husband owes to her. In other words, it was not given to her yet. So therefore, we allow it to continue to stay in the chazaka of the husband, which the husband died, so it would be his brother Shimon's property, the Yevam's property. However, this is the key number 3.
But if Shimon does chalitza, doesn't pay the ksuba money, does he?
No. The ksuba money is something that she would get then from Reuven's property. Correct. Chalitza has nothing to do with her getting or not getting the ksuba money from Reuven's property. Here we're saying that being that chalitza was not done, Shemeres Yavam died because of the zika. The zika connects her to him, and if zika is strong enough, he might inherit from her. So the question is, does he or does he not? So being that this money was not given to her yet, and it comes from the family of the Baal, family of the Yavam, so it stays in the possession of the Yavam. And here is where Beis Hillel argues with Beis Shammai that when it comes to the nechasim, when it comes to the properties that were never fully given to the husband, they are the nechnasim v'yotzim imam. So what does Beis Hillel paskin? Becheskas yorshei ha'av, that they stay in the chazaka of the woman, because that's the whole meaning of nichsim meloig, that she never gave it to her husband. She allowed her husband to use its fruits while they were married, but it was always hers. So it stays in their chazaka. And it is here where Beis Shammai argues, and he says that you divide it as we'll explain in the Gemara. Kansa, this is all when she's only a Shemeres Yavam. But the moment Shimon marries her through Yibum, and rabbinically, and according to some by Torah, by doing Maimer and Yibum, then Harei ki ishtay l'chol davar. Now this woman becomes the wife of Shimon. And if she passes away, the halacha is that when a wife passes away, her husband inherits everything that she has. Ubilvad, however, concludes the Mishnah, shetehei ksuba al nichsei baylo harishon. We'll see the meaning of this last line in the Mishnah later in the Gemara, emphasizing that the ksuba money has to come from the property of Reuven. We're speaking about the ksuba money from Reuven, to be clarified later in the Gemara. The Gemara begins with the question. And the question is like this. The Mishnah began telling you that a Shemeres Yavam that didn't die, she inherited property. Is she allowed or not allowed to sell it? Das balabatam hepach das Torah. What would we think? If the Mishnah is giving you a machlokes, is addressing, could she sell or not sell her property? In other words, is it hers or not? Well, automatically, if she dies, does her family keep it? Does his family keep it? One is mamash connected to the other. In other words, whatever Beis Hillel or Beis Shammai would hold in one case should be exactly the same in the other case. Now, Beis Hillel did not contradict himself. Beis Hillel said Beis Hillel said that she has the right to sell her property. Beis Hillel says that her family gets to keep the nechsem aloig. It's consistent. But Beis Shammai that says that when she's living, Shemeres Yavam, Beis Shammai says she gets to sell it. But on the other hand, when she dies, if she dies, then the Nichsim Aloig doesn't go 100% to her inheritors, to her heirs. Doesn't make sense. Ma'ishna Reisha, Deloi Pligi, Ma'ishna Sefer de Pligi. This is a strong question, and we're going to learn 4 answers to the question. God willing, we're going to learn today 2, and in Daf Lamed Tes we'll learn the other 2. Maybe we'll cover 3 today. So let's begin. Amar Ula, answer number 1. Ula says a chiddush. Unlike the other answers that explain the difference between her being alive versus her dying, Ula says that the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa has to do with what connection did she have with the first husband. Well, in both cases, we're speaking about a Shemeres Yavam, that while she was waiting Yibum, she got hold of those possessions. She got it when she was waiting for Yibum or Chalitza from Shimon. The question is, what connection did she have with Reuven? In the Reisha, Ula says, the Nafla, it fell to a woman that was a Yavam already. She was already a Shemeres Yavam, but she, Kishihi Arusa, that she was only engaged biblically to Reuven. And Reuven dies. And she still needs Yibum, or Chalitza. And before she got Yibum and Chalitza, then she inherited something. As we'll explain in a moment, that the connection that she has with Reuven is already lesser than the connection she would have with a real married husband. So to begin with, the first marriage wasn't fully connected yet. And as Ula will explain, a Shemeres Yavam is always one level less than the original marriage. So in the Reisha, where the original marriage itself was only an engaged marriage, that's why even Beis Shammai is Maida, that if now Reuven dies, even though she's waiting Yibum, it's less than engagement. And therefore she has the right l'chatchila to sell it. Seifa, speaking about a case that she inherited, or she found, or she got a gift, or what have you, when she was a Shemeres Yavam. But what was her relationship with Reuven? Kishehi Nesuya. She was married to Reuven. In other words, the zika that she had with Reuven was the strongest. They were married. A Shemeres Yavam is one level less. But still, since it began stronger, one level less is stronger than if you only started out with only an engagement. Which is why Beis Shammai in the Seifa will hold that she cannot keep it, her family doesn't keep it, it's divided 50-50, and he talks it out. Vikasavar Ula holds, Zikas Arusa, that if the connection came from a engagement, what do you call that connection now? Oisa Safik Arusa. These are his words. All he's saying is that the connection between the Shemeres Yavam and Shimon is one level less than the connection she had with her original husband. So if that was a Arusa, now he'll call this a Safik Arusa. The connection of Arusa itself is weaker than a marriage. Turning the page, Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis. Zikas Nesuya, the Sefer of the Mishnah, is the highest connection. So a Shemeres Yavam from a marriage is less than a marriage, is a Safik Nesuya. And now he explains it. Since Zikas Arusa only makes a Safik Arusa, and why do we have to say that a Shemeres Yavam goes one level down? He explains. Because the Isal Kadaitach Vadai Arusa. Because if we would hold that no matter, that the same connection that she had with Reuven, now that Reuven dies, the same type of Zika goes on with Shimon, if that would have been the case, then it can't be, because Moedim Beis Hillel, because in our Mishnah, Beis Hillel are Moedim, Shemeres Yavim, that she's lechatchila allowed to sell, to give a gift, the belongings that belong to her. Right? Shemecheres, v'nisenes, v'kayim. And we learned in the Masechtas Ksubas, like we quoted now before we learned the Mishnah, that Naflula Nechasim Mishen is Arsa, that if she got hold of possessions when she was engaged, you have a machlokes. Beis Shammai says, Taka lechatchila, she can sell it. Beis Hillel, the yeshiva of Hillel held that loitim card, that she's not allowed to sell it lechatchila. It's only Beis Hillel said that Elu ve'elu maidim, that if b'diavad she'im machra or v'nasana, then kayim. So by the very fact that we see that Beis Hillel by Yarusa says that lechatchila she should not sell it, and a Shemeres Yavam could sell it, is a raya that Shemeres Yavim is one level less. Elosh Mamino, Zikas Arusa makes only a Safik Arusa. And let's go to the other case of the Seifa, Zikas Nesuya. Now that the husband died, Yes, there is a zika, yes, there is a connection, but it's not as strong as the connection she had with Reuven. So it's one level lower. It only makes what's called a suffix nesuya. And how do I know that it goes down a level? Again, the Gemara gives a proof, because the Isal Kadaitach, that vaday nesuya, if even after she's only a shemeres yavam, her connection with Shimon is just as strong as her connection with Reuven, then Beishamai oimrim here yachloiku yershe habalam yershe ha'av. Here Beishamai says that they get to divide it 50-50, the nechsem aloig, as we'll explain later, and we learned in Masechta Ksubos that everyone agrees that if while a woman is married, she gets hold of property, naflula nechasim mishanises elu ve'elam moedim, that she cannot sell it. She machra v'nasana shabal moitz miyad alakoches. Here Beis Shammai says she gets to keep half. So for sure, a shemeres yavam's legal connection to the man for whom she's awaiting yibum is not as strong as her original husband's connection. So that was a good answer. Now, the challenge we have with Ula is that the Mishnah, the Reisha and the Seifa did not differentiate, at least clearly, between does it come from an engagement or does it come from a marriage. The Mishnah spoke about she's alive versus she's dead, which l'chayra would imply that the difference in din between the Reish and the Seifa has to do with her being alive or not. According to Ula's interpretation, it has nothing to do with whether she's alive or not. In other words, whatever the halacha would have been if she is living, the same halacha will be if she dies. The difference is, from but that doesn't go good in the Mishnah. So Amar le Rabba, so Rabba asked Ula, Adam iflika begufal achar misam. Why did the Seifa have to speak about her selling the property herself, or her dying, and what will be the din with the property? Why don't you let her live? Ask liflegu b'chayeh leperes. Same kasha. In other words, if death is not what changes the halacha, and the Sefer is speaking about a case Zozain that she is a shemeres yavam from a marriage, so ask if a woman was married to the Reuven and Reuven dies, and while she is a shemeres yavam, she inherits property. Here you don't even have to speak about selling. Ask who gets to eat the peiros. And according to Ula Taka, that would Taka be the machlokes between Yisham and Beis Hillel. Why didn't we give that case? Therefore, Rabbas feels that the fact that the Mishnah changes, the Reisha is that she's living, selling. Safe is that she died, Yerusha, that is key to the reason of the change in Beis Shammai Reisha Seifa. Elamar Rabba idi the naflok shinasuya. Both the Reisha and the Seifa is the normal case of a shemeres yavam. And you're right. The connection between her and her husband becomes weakened. She has a one level lower, lesser connection with her yavam. The zikas nasuya only makes a suffix nasuya. And the key difference, what was the kasha? In the Reisha, what did Beis Shammai say? Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are moedim that she can sell it. Why can she sell it? Because she's alive. Reisha the ihi kaima, since she's living. And what is she claiming? She's claiming it's mine. She inherited the property. So since the property came to her, it's for sure hers. Maybe if the din is that the shemeres yavam gets things from her, so from her it went to him. But even if the shemeres yavam gets it, from whom is he getting it? He's getting it from her. I mean, she's the vaday. He's a suffix. And we had this rule that ain't suffix moitz midei vaday. Havala ihi vaday. And ve'inu, and the yavam is only a suffix. And ve'ain suffix moitz midei vaday. When it comes to the Seifa, since she died, changes everything. So even if it went to her, it's not in her possession now. You have her Yarshim, you have Shimon's Yarshim fighting over it. The halal uboim lidish, the halal uboim lidish. So therefore we say v'yachloiku. Oh, now, we learned talking yesterday. Shared the rule that we brought from Daf Kuf that ein safek moitzim midei vaday, but we never knew Beis Shammai held of it. So now Abaya is going to challenge Rabba. And eventually Abaye is going to give his own answer, his third answer. But what's Abaye's challenge on Rabba? According to your Rabba, that even Beis Shammai holds, it makes sense. But the Rabba holds ein safek moitzim midei vaday, can be. Why? So he challenged Rabba leBeis Shammai from a Mishnah in Bava Basra. And we learned the following case. Dinei Yerusha. That there was, let's give the names that we are familiar with. We had Yaakov, and he has a son Reuven. And Reuven was poor, and he had debts. And Yaakov and Reuven were both in a house, and the house collapsed on both of them, and both of them died. We had a similar case a few daf ago, but that was for other dinim. Here it's for Dinei Yerusha. That was for Dinei, does she have to get Chalitza or Yibum or not? What's the question? Very simple. If Yaakov died first, then Reuven inherited from Yaakov. Even if there was a brother Shimon, he got half. And since he got half, even though he died now, the people to whom he owes money can collect from the half that he inherited what they owe him. If that covers all of it, halavai. If not, at least part of it. But if Reuven died first, so when Reuven died, Reuven had no children here. Who inherited Reuven? If no one goes down, Yaakov inherited him, and then Yaakov died. Who's the only Yodesh of Yaakov? Shimon. So the Baal Chayv cannot take anything. Gewaldig. Because Reuven owes the money. Reuven never had anything for them to collect from. Elamah here, if Yaakov died a second before Reuven, or a minute before Reuven, then until Reuven died, Reuven owned something. The moment Reuven owned something, because he yashened it from his father, now from that, the Baal Chayv can go collect their debts. So, Nafal Abayis, all of Allah, it fell on him and on his father, or on him and on any other person from whom he would have inherited. Va'al Moirishav. And this was Reuven, was a person who owed people money. Either he owed ksuba to a wife that he divorced, and or if he owed someone a debt, or Baal Chayv. And therefore each side, Yershei Ha'av, let's say Shimon is saying, Haben Meisvishim. Reuven died first. When Reuven died first of all, he had nothing. Period. So when Yaakov died, who inherited Yaakov? When Yaakov died, Reuven wasn't living. So everything goes to Shimon. But the Baal Chayv is shouting, maybe not. I mean, each one is saying, maybe. Baal Chayv is saying, Ha'av Meisvishim. No, Yaakov died first. When Yaakov died first, half of his belongings went to Reuven. From that half we can collect. So what do you do? So we learned in Mesechtus Baba Basra Machlokes. Beis Shammai says Yachloiku. Yachloiku meaning exactly from whatever Reuven might have inherited, half of that goes to Shimon, and half of that go to cover his debts. Beisilul Oimrim Nechasim Becheskasim, that the belongings remain in their possession. Who is their possession? In their father's possession, because it started out in whose possession? Reuven is poor. That's why the Baal Chayv is never collected until now. So it was in Yaakov's possession. So we assume that it belongs to Yaakov. When Yaakov died, who's the only son now? Shimon. The Baal Chayv get nothing. Now, the Gemara asks Abaya and Rabbah, you are explaining Beis Shammai's opinion in our Mishnah based on Ein Safek Moitzim Midei Vadai, V'ha'ach Yarshe Avar Vadai, because they for sure are Yarshe. Shimon for sure is a Yodesh. Whether he's going to get 50% or he's going to get 100%. He's for sure a Yodesh. The question is, maybe Reuven was Yodesh, maybe he was not. What did we learn today in case number 5? That Ein Safek Moitzim Midei Vadai. Mamish in such a case. And if Beis Shammai will agree to it, then how can he say Yachloiku? So by the fact that Beis Shammai says Yachloiku, it comes that Beis Shammai does not agree to the rule of Ein Safek Moitzim Midei Vadai. Ubal Chayv Safek, the cause is Moitzim Midei Vadai. So Kasha against Rabbah answers Rabbah, Beis Shammai holds that Ein Safek Moitzim Midei Vadai. Why do we say over here that the Baal Chayv get to keep half? Because they are muchzakim, and here we are introducing a Gavaldike halacha, which we don't fully paskin like, but it's good to know. Beis Shammai holds shtar ha'omed ligbois k'gavui dami, being that Reuven, we're speaking about a debt that was documented. Being that the Baal Chayv have a document saying that Reuven owes them money, which automatically puts a lien on properties of Reuven, which he didn't have until the end of his life, it's as if they already are in possession of those properties. It's amazing.
So that means that
that
he's going to get his Yerusha from his father, there's a lien on that.
There's already a lien on that. And therefore, it's as if, well, being that there's a doubt, Beis Hillel's taina is you leave the nechasim in their chazaka. Beis Shammai says, why isn't it in their chazaka? They're equally muhzakim. A document makes you a muhzak. So either none of them are muhzakim or they're both muhzakim. So now you're back to, if you're both of them are muhzakim, yachleiku. Now we don't paskin that way, but it's good to know that we do paskin that a shtar chayv is not kegovi domi. A shtar chayv, but if it's a shtar matana, the best example would be a check, like cash. Because if I write you out a gift, if I write you out a shtar documenting a gift, you having that document means that you are already in possession of those belongings. And let's move on over here. This is a good sugya. Now uminotim, no? And the Gemara says, and how? I mean, Rabbi is saying a chiddush. How? Rabbi isn't only saying it to justify his answer in our Mishnah, but Rabbi actually has a raya from another place that Beis Shammai holds that shtar ha'oimed ligbois kegavidami. From where the Tanan we learned the Masechta Saita. If there was a woman that was warned in front of two witnesses, that's called kinui, by her husband. The husband warns the wife, don't be alone with so and so. Don't have yichud with that and that person. Now, obviously, yichud is a isun doiraisa, and it's very serious. But on top of that, now that she was warned by her husband not to seclude herself with a certain individual, if now there are an additional two witnesses, the same or others, that testify that she was alone with that individual, then she can no longer be with her husband. She has to drink the mayim, the special waters that were prepared in the Beis Hamikdash. And now the question in the Mishnah is, what happens if this Saita died before she drank the waters? Question Benegeya to, does she collect her ksuba? Beis Shammai says, Noitlas ksubas.
She died.
No, the husband died. The husband died. So now, drank the waters, and now she wants to collect the ksuba money before her husband's children get the Yerusha. So Beis Shammai says that she gets her ksuba. She's claiming she's innocent. She was going to drink the waters. You taka cannot make her drink the waters when the husband is no longer living, because we'll see a pasuk. It's the husband that brings her. If the husband is not there, she doesn't drink, but she gets to keep her ksuba. Beis Hillel says either she drinks the waters, and if not, she can't get it. It's either or.
Why can't she get it?
Because if she doesn't drink the water, she was not allowed to be with her husband. Even though she was not allowed to be with her husband because we have a suffix, but the din was that she was asa l'bayla. And if the woman would have told her husband, I'm not drinking the waters. No. If she would tell her husband that I'm not drinking the waters, he would divorce her without giving her ksuba. Like a woman who vaday had, God forbid, a relation with another man, the husband divorces her and does not give her a ksuba. Well, she's already considered guilty. She has to prove that she's innocent. So either prove you're innocent or you don't get it. Now, we have to just correct. Beis Hillel says, could she really drink the waters? Beis Hillel didn't mean that. It says in the pasuk, Vehevi ha'ish es ishtay amar achmana, that the man has to bring his wife, and if the man is living, then she cannot drink, which is what Beis Hillel meant. Ella, Beis Hillel meant to say, mitoich shaloi shaisais, since she cannot drink, loy noitlis ksubasan. Now, what's the kasha? This is going to be Rabba's proof. The hachi over here, when you analyze the case, at the end of the day, there's a doubt. Did she have zinus? Or did she not have zinus? Or she loses her ksuba, not because she becomes a saita. She loses her ksuba if she has a relation, an act of intimacy with another man. And we don't know that. So we have a doubt. And nevertheless, what does Beis Shammai paskin? Beis Shammai says that she gets her ksuba. Question is, how can she get her ksuba? The ksuba money is becheskasu. You can argue it was becheskas her husband before he died. So now it should be in the chazaka of the heirs. She is a suffix. You have to answer, no, because she has a document. A ksuba document makes her a muhzak. She's not an outsider. She, as a married woman with the ksuba, is already muhzik in those properties. Which is, now that there's a doubt, they're not more muhzik than she is. Now the Gemara just says...
But it doesn't say yachleiku.
Correct. Because she holds that she's more than that, she's a muhzik. That the children are not muhzik, she's the muhzik. She's the muhzik. a married woman is muchzik in the value of the ksuba. Oh, now the Gemara asks like this: Abaya, who didn't know the answer of Beis Shammai holding that shtar ha'omed ligbois is kagavi dami. Before Abaya challenged Rabbah, that how can you, Rabbah, say that Beis Shammai holds ein safek meitzim and vadai? He didn't know the answer. He challenged him from the Mishnah in Bava Basra. So now the Gemara asks, why did Abaya challenge Rabbah from the Mishnah in Bava Basra? Why didn't he challenge him from this Mishnah that we just mentioned in Saita? There also we see the kasha would be that Beis Shammai, you're telling me Beis Shammai holds that ein safek meitzim edei vadai, yeah? Beis Shammai paskin that she gets the whole ksuba. Abaya lo yisremaha. So the Gemara answers that from there Abaya himself wouldn't have a question, because one could have argued that the reason why Beis Shammai paskins by the Saita, she's a widow now, that her husband died, that she gets the ksuba, because we would think the chachamim were lenient only there mishum china, because they want for a widow to have the grace of having money. So either if she'll have money, other people will want to marry her, or it's a more generic grace that we want women before they get married to know that they will get their ksuba. Even if there's a case of doubt, they will get the ksuba for them to be willing to get married. So it's either to be noisechein by women, that men should find grace in the eyes of women, or for this widow to have more money, for people to want to marry her in any event. By Soita you can explain, but in Bava Basra, Abaya had a great question. Elamai Rabba answered the question because of the din of Shtar HaAmid. Now the loisvei ksuba, the loisvei ksuba de masneisen. Again, the question is, in our Mishnah, what's the din of a ksuba? That's what we have to clarify. When Beis Hillel began to argue with Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel said three things. He said nechasim becheskasim. Then he said number two, ksuba becheskas yorshe habal. Now 1 second. Ksuba becheskas yorshe habal. Beis Shammai said on this that what? L'chayda Beis Shammai said that you divide it. The question is, why does Beis Shammai say in our Mishnah that her Yarshim and his Yarshim divided? The Ksuba is a document. We are just saying that Ashtar she's a muchzak. Answers the Gemara, loy pligi. Beis Shammai did not argue on that case, as we explained when we learned the Mishnah to begin with, that the sefer of our Mishnah, the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is only on the third, on the nechasim hanechnasim v'yotzim ima, only on nechsim aloik, because nechsim aloik is like a property that she's muchzik. Even when she's married to her first husband, it's not really his. He only gets to use the paytas. Only there does Beis Hillel say that it stays fully with her family. And it's there that Beis Shammai said Yachloiku. And the Gemara just has to clarify the wordings of the Mishnah. The Gemara says, V'loi, Beis Shammai does not argument on Ksuba. What are you talking about? V'haktani. It says Mesa. We asked, Ma Yasa with the Ksuba and with the Nechnasim, with the Nechasim, Ha-Nechnasim Yetzim Ima. And on this, L'chayda Beis Shammai said, Yachloiku Yershabal Miyershiav. And on this, Beis Hillel said, Nechasim Bechaskasam. Answers the Gemara, Haki Ka'amar. First, the Mishnah asked, Mesa, if she dies, the Shemeres Yavam dies, Ma Yasa B'Ksuvasa. What do you do with her Ksuba money? And when the Mishnah asked the question, Vishafka, the Mishnah did not answer that. Like, put that aside. And then the Mishnah asked another question. And what do you do with the nichsim eloig, with the nechasim hanechnasim vayetzim ima? And it is only on this that Beis Shammai said yachloiku yorshei abalam yorshei av, because here there's no star. Here at Taka there's no star, and therefore there's no chazaka. She
didn't apply to the ksuba.
Exactly, and it's here that Beis Hillel says that nechasim b'chaskasam and Amar Avashi masnisin nami daika. That from our Mishnah itself, it's clear that Beis Shammai only argued Yachloiku only in the third type, which is the Nechsem Aloik. Because when it says Yachloiku, look at the words of Beis Shammai. This is brilliant. It says Yachloiku Yorshei Habal Im Yorshei Ha'av. That the relatives of the husband of the Yavam, they get it with her family's relatives. When A gets it with B, when it's worded like this in such a context, the B is the ikr. The Yarshei Ha'av are getting it. It's Nechsem Aloik. So the Chiddush of Beis Shammai is that they also get it together. A also gets it. And it doesn't say, V'loik tani Yarshei Ha'av im Yarshei Ha'bal.
Which would imply that the Chiddush is that the Yarshei Ha'av also get it.
Which would have meant that Beis Shammai is arguing on all of the cases. He's not arguing on all the cases. So in the meanwhile, we have the answer of Ula. Go back to the question. In the Reisha, Beis Shammai and B'silul Hamoide, that Shemeres Yavam alive can sell what she owns. It's hers. But if she dies all of a sudden, in certain cases at least, Beis Shammai says Yachleiku. Why? Ula says that the Reisha is she was a Shemeres Yavam from an Arusa. The Seifa is a Shemeres Yavam from a Nesuya. And the moment it's an Nesuya, her connection is stronger to the Baal, so the Yarshei HaBaal have more Koyach. And you have the answer of Rabbah, and the answer of Rabbah is that Beis Shammai holds that Ein Safek Moitzim Yedei Vadai. And therefore, when she is alive, she says, it's mine, I'm selling it. Mashenkin in the Seifa, when it's these Yarshim against those Yarshim, there you have the din of Mammon HaMutal B'Safek is Chalkin. And in Eretz Hashem, next year, we're going to learn Abayi gives an answer, and then Rava gives an answer, and like this we explain the Mishnah. Eretz Hashem to be continued.